Hello and welcome to Films for the Very First Time. My name is Jordan. With me, as always, is Casey McGeorge.
I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle before I can tell you how's it going, everybody.
Yeah, don't get in a fight with Casey. Just give him the clothes. Just give him the clothes. Um, yeah, if you are an avid film fan or if you're following along with us, you'll know what that is referring to here as we watch every week a movie that one of us has not seen, picked by the person that's seen it. So last week we talked Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers Extended Edition. This week, Casey, what are we talking about?
We are talking about a classic, what the modern action movie right now has to thank. Because without this movie, I don't think the modern action movie exists. We're talking about James Cameron's Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
Yes, this is my first time seeing this. This was picked by Casey.
Which I know you've told me before you haven't seen it, but it still surprises me that I can see you having not seen the original Terminator because it is before your time. Like, I get that was 1985 when it came out, so that's a little understandable. But in this one, I think it's still a little bit before you, but it was still a huge, huge deal.
It
And that
came
just
out
baffled me. 1991.
let's 1991, which is the year I was born, but it came out in okay, I was you ready for this? I was about 17 days old when this movie came out.
Okay, we can't take a 17-day-old Jordan to go see Terminator 2. I'm sure it's
Actually,
not
hold
going to be
on.
a good experience for you, but I'm
It's
pretty
actually
sure
closer to
overall.
10 days. I was actually closer to 10 days. Sorry.
Well, hold
Math
on.
wrong.
Let's double check the math here because it was directed by James Cameron, written by James Cameron and William Wisher. It was released on July 1st of 1991 in Century City out here in California. It was released for the rest of the country on July 3rd, 1991. The budget, we've got a bunch of different numbers between 94 and 102 million dollars, which at the time was the most expensive film ever made. Box office was around $520 million from what it pulled in. Obviously, it's starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, Robert Patrick, Edward Furlong as a young, I can't think of his name, John Connor, and starring Joe Morton as Miles Dyson. We will talk about Miles Dyson in a little bit. Uh, so now with the first or the third, what's your age range now?
Okay, if I'm going off the third, I was born on the 26th, so that'd be 7 days, right? 4 for the 30th, and then 3 for July.
Is that 31 day? No, June is 31.
Third, yeah, there's only 30
I
in June.
I don't know. I just remember July is 31, so I don't think there's two in a row that do.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, yeah. So about a week. This is a week after I was born.
I mean, I'm pretty sure 7-day-old Jordan wouldn't have had a good experience based on the loud noises and
Mm-hmm.
explosions and things. And I'm sure because of that, 7-day-old Jordan would not have made it a good experience for everyone else inside the movie theater.
I did have a baby in a showing of what movie was it? I think it was Days of Futures Past, X-Men. PG-13, right? So the baby's still a little young. But that baby was crying. It was pretty close to a newborn too, I think. It was crying a lot, and it's like you couldn't find a sitter.
You know what? You just don't get to see the movie then. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I don't have
exactly.
kids, and this might sound cruel, but you can't make it a bad experience for everybody else. Like,
Especially nowadays. Like I know like Days of Future Past is 10 years old about now, but nowadays it's streaming, like it's going to be look, you're only going to have to wait even to rent it. You're only going to have to wait like maybe 60 days.
yeah, you don't get to make it a bad experience for everybody else. So we know why you did not go see this. Okay, where was I? I was 78. So I was 13 years old. I might have been able to get in, but I don't think I went to go see it. Um, I did definitely saw it on VHS. That was a big movie when it came out. That was a big blockbuster release, or Hollywood Video, or whatever video store you happened to peruse at the time. I also have very fond memories of, for those of you who know and remember this, Columbia House with their music club, and then they had a DVD club. So this was one of the DVDs I got through Columbia House. I still have the DVD, but it was unbelievable for me because, so like when you put in a VHS tape, you just put it in and it like you either stop or play. Like there's no menus, there's none of that, right? But with DVDs now you get menus, and a lot of them were pretty simple. This one had like the liquid metal that it used, like liquid metal stuff. There was a lot of like super secret things that eventually you look up on the internet of like doing certain things with the remote that could lead you to other scenes and various other things. And they put a lot of work into the actual menu and the animation stuff that went into the menus for it. I'm sure when it was released on Laserdisc previously, Laserdisc might have been the same thing. I don't know. I never experienced the Laserdisc. But
I have fond memories of Laserdiscs. They used to use those in our school. At one point, like middle school, they'd be like, "We're gonna watch this movie." It's Laserdisc, and I always thought it was really cool because it'd have like you know how like DVDs have the chapter menu.
yeah.
Laserdisc would have those, but they had like a barcode, and you'd have to use like this wand to like scan it to get to the chapter or whatever. It was the most probably asinine thing, but I thought it was really cool until we eventually got DVDs.
Well, for me, I remember Kevin Smith, filmmaker, producer, director, writer. He does a lot. You know, he's real big into films and stuff. And one of the commentary on one of his films, and you can look it up on YouTube. It's great. He talks about, he's doing commentary on it, and he was, I guess it was for it was obviously for the Laserdisc, and he was like, man, F DVD, Laserdisc is the future. And we see that obviously that was a freezing cold take. Did not pan out. So before we get started, let's talk about it. Came out in 1991, which was 85, so it's like 6-7 years between when Terminator 1 and Terminator 2 came out. Nowadays, that's a long time. Like usually, like if you have a good opening weekend, or like you get a lot of buzz before opening weekend, studios might sign you up to do the sequel like right off the bat, right? So work on a sequel stalled because of animosity between James Cameron, William Wisher, and
Gale and Hurd?
Hemdale Film Corporation,
Ooh.
which partially owned the previous film's rights. In 1990, and I think Schwarzenegger had some animosity too. Schwarzenegger and Cameron persuaded Carolco Pictures, don't know if I mispronounced that, sorry, to purchase the rights from the Terminator producer Gale Ann Hurd. Remember her from the one we talked about a couple weeks ago?
And he said he regretted that, right? Like, I think we talked about that last time.
Yeah. They were financially struggling, and eventually they did end up going bankrupt. They had discussions to make a sequel, and they were stalled until 1989. A lot of it had to do with Cameron working on a couple other films, including Aliens and The Abyss, which actually was a good thing because a lot of the technology and stuff that they used in The Abyss translated and they used here for Terminator 2. But obviously also because they had dispute with the rights holder of Hemdale Film Corporation. Co-founder John Daly of Hemdale attempted to alter the ending of the Terminator against Cameron's wishes, which nearly resulted in a physical confrontation between the two. Two middle-aged men fighting. Outstanding. Sequel couldn't be made without Hemdale's approvals. Cameron had sold 50% of his rights to in order to Hemdale in order to get the Terminator made. He also sold half of the remaining stake to his ex-wife, Gale Ann Hurd, producer and co-writer, for $1 following their 1989 divorce. By 1990, Hendo was being sued by Cameron, Heard, Schwarzenegger, and the great special effects man, Stan Winston, for unpaid profits from the Terminator. So this thing went through a ton of development hell. And I think that might be part of the reason why the franchise keeps going through development hell, because as you see, the rights for different films are owned by like whole different. I think someone might own the rights of the last couple now, but there was still periods of time between one and
It's
two, two
amazing.
and
It's
three.
amazing too because like I was looking at getting these on DVD, right? Like on Blu-ray. I was looking at Blu-rays that they have one with all the movies, but if you look at the back of it, just seeing all the different logos, it's like MGM, TriStar, Columbia. It's like all of these different companies that I'm like, it probably took a lot just to even get this get this thing released.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're one of those companies, can hold out for a little bit more money, because otherwise, like, you can't have the complete Terminator, box set, which for some people it like, it's gonna suck. So, but I think, I don't know for sure. I think one company or somehow it's a little bit straight, a little bit better now. But even still, trying to like find them on streaming services, either because each film independently sold streaming rights to different companies, or maybe once again because they might have been owned by different companies, and maybe some of those have went under or been conglomerated between other companies through buyouts like Time Warner and all this other stuff. Like I said, it's all over the place.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that is crazy. Just it's something I always knew too. It's like I always knew that, even though I never seen these. Like this was always I did go back. I was editing. I don't know the Goonies episode that we did, and I think I did mention because we were talking about Goonie sequels, and I said like, and we did kind of have that same conversation that we had last week or 2 weeks ago about Terminator sequels, and how like that's something I knew that like they were all tied up, and that they the next person gets the rights and wants to make their you know, new Terminator movie and remove the other ones from continuity and all that stuff. So I do want to say before we move forward, while I did not ever see this movie, I did see some stuff of this from, like I said before, the uh, Lucasfilm ILM series on Disney Plus, where I saw like the scene where he turns liquid and goes through the bars.
Yeah,
That scene is featured in there, and so is another scene of Robert Patrick's T1000. And I just looked up what the actual name of the attraction was in Universal. It was called Terminator 2 3D Battle Across Time.
yes,
Now they said this is kind of like a mini sequel, which I think is interesting. But the show was presented in two parts. There was a pre-show where Cyberdyne Systems company hostess shows guests a brief video presentation about the company's innovations, and then the main show where live performers interact with a 3D film. Um, and this thing was there until 2017 in Hollywood and 2013 in no, sorry, 2017 in Florida and 2013 in Hollywood. It actually just closed 3 years ago in Japan, which is surprising. But I remember some stuff from it that I was like, oh, that's like, I think there were some scenes that I was like, was this the scene that we were seeing on that stage show? Kind of, but it was still written by James Cameron,
yeah,
wrote the stage show and directed it. And since it does interact with the 3D film, you still get Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, Ever Furlong, and Robert Patrick. But that was pretty much all I'd ever known about the Terminator franchise. And one time in class, sorry, in 12th grade, I think it was, we had to do this project in like a creative writing class, and somebody edited the scene of Arnold Schwarzenegger saying "I'll be back" and like going into lava and like putting his thumbs up, melting. I don't remember what their project was about or why they used that, but that had stuck with me, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I kind of know how this ends," because I remember that random project somebody did in high school. But so that's been my experience with this movie.
All right, so before we start with the movie, you brought up ILM, Industrial Light and Magic. So obviously we know they did a lot of it, like the gold standard for special effects in Hollywood. Uh, First use of a computer-generated main character in a blockbuster film. Unfortunately, they had some overrun, went beyond schedule. Theatrical prints were not delivered to theaters until the night before its release on July 3rd. So
Hmm.
I mean, imagine what could have happened had they not got those prints delivered in time. And
A
the
lot of upset
marketing,
people.
yeah, like I can't even imagine. I mean, well, maybe now because everything's done digitally, so it's not like you're sending prints out. You can probably,
Yeah, the way it works, I follow, like I follow all this stuff, and I'm on like box office subreddits and stuff, and people talk about like, hey, my Regal just got this in, and they worked there or something. There's like the projector is hooked up to the internet or something, and like they download it into their system. They get a key as well from the distributor. So they download it, it's locked, and they
yeah,
can't play the film at all until the company sends them the key for them to unlock it, which they usually do like a day before showtime for ones they really are trying to keep locked under key for movies and stuff. So
I get it.
totally different nowadays.
All right, so the movie starts. Earth in 2029. Once again, there's a lot of skulls on the ground. We're only 6 years away from this. I don't know what the hell's going on, but there's a lot of skulls just roaming around Los Angeles in 2029. We got to make sure that doesn't happen.
It looked similar to the first scene in the first one. Did they reuse any of this, you think, or is it new?
I don't think they did because I also saw that those were actual animatronics for
Okay. Because the one that like
the
stepped on
Terminator.
the skull, I was like, I think I've seen this in the first
They
one.
they might have just because they were using like actual animatronics,
Mm-hmm.
like it just might have been a lot. They might have been able to get like a cleaner shot. You know, it
Right.
looks a lot better. And I think that's probably a shot that they've used throughout the series. Is that or something very similar? Just, I mean, that's a go-to shot.
I was gonna say like the matte paintings. I don't think they used them in this one, and it looked a lot better in the future. Than like the original opening scene. But like parts of
Yeah.
it, I thought looked pretty similar.
Um. So we see Terminators, we see people fighting Terminators, and all that other stuff. So we go back to 1995 in LA. Oh, hey, it's naked Arnold Schwarzenegger again. Once again, if I had the body Arnold Schwarzenegger had in 1995, I don't think I'm ever wearing clothes. Period. Like, just I couldn't do it. Like, so he shows up in Los Angeles. We'll talk about this bar, some other things later when we get some other notes. Obviously, everyone's kind of freaked out because there's a naked dude just wandering in a bar. We get the Terminator vision, right? He's trying to find people who's got the same clothes. People are freaked out. The women are all like, hey, all right, woo. He finds a dude. That's where we get the line, I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle. Fight breaks out. Obviously, Arnold wins because he's Arnold. Um, and at this point, we still don't know anything about the Terminator. Now, you obviously know because you've seen it. You knew before. If you were watching this like after it came out, are you still thinking he's the bad guy? Do you think that might be enough for you to be like, oh, he's back?
I kind of thought about this as I was watching it. I was like, because I was going to ask you kind of something similar as somebody that did watch it without. Well, I was thinking like there's probably previews that showed him be like, "Come with me if you want to live," right? So I assume that it was kind of a well-known fact for people from marketing type stuff, but I was wondering, like, let's say nobody had ever seen anything about this and they were just watching it. Would I have landed on Robert Patrick being because they kind of show both like very quickly.
yeah. After that, we cut to Robert Patrick as the
And
T-1000.
I would say I think the movie does a good job at telling you pretty quickly that Arnold is the good guy. And the reason I think that is because they say in like the narration, right? Uh, John Connor sends one of there's two Terminators. John sends one back to protect him and from the other one. And when you see how much more advanced the other one is, I'm like, okay, I think that one is the bad guy, right? So I think they kind of set it up pretty good, but I do wonder if some people that don't know are like, oh my god, he's back, like he said.
You also have to look too. So Arnold had a string of like big hits, and he's a big action movie star at this time.
Right. So
So
they're like,
you
we're not
can't
going to
he can't
waste them on the villain again.
yeah, he can't be the hero. He can't be the villain at this point, right? Uh, so yeah, Robert Patrick shows up once again. He's naked. Um, when they were casting for the T-1000, right? Obviously, uh, they they were casting for the T-1000. Um, so I got a quote about it here. Uh, at the time, Patrick's living in his car in LA, which you hear about a lot of actors trying to make it big. Um, Cameron wanted a life actor. He wanted a smaller, skinnier actor resembling a new police recruit, in contrast to Schwarzenegger, right? And according to Cameron, quote, if the T-800 is a kind of a human that's a Panzer tank, the T-1000 has to be a Porsche. And I think that's a good contrast between the two, because if you have like another Arnold, which they actually thought about, we can have Arnold play both parts, but then they thought that would be too confusing,
Yeah, that
right?
is.
But and then I'm sure at some point we get the whole oh no, like trust me, blah blah blah, all the stuff you would see from like
Shoot him! Shoot
yeah,
him!
no, I'm your father, blah blah blah. We
Yeah.
we get all that right, but so there is a good contract, and obviously as I think it makes a good distinction that as time goes along and technology advances, things get better and cheaper and sleeker and shinier and prettier. Like look at that first iPhone compared to what we have now, right? Um, there was also thoughts
Though I missed
of
the home button still, but regardless.
bringing John Connor back, the guy who played the original John Connor, as a reprogrammed T-1000, where they were gonna somehow they would have got a hold of him and used him
Well,
like
he can change his look, right? Is what we see in this one. So
once he touches them physically or connects with them. But once again, it was decided that would have been too confusing, because especially for people who've seen the first one, now you're looking at wait a minute, he's the good guy in the first one, the bad guy in the second one. Now they're flipping roles and so on and so forth. And especially Sarah Connor's going to see him. That's probably going to have some issues with her. Blah blah blah. So we eventually get to meet up with John. Okay, he is a angsty, snot nosed, horrible, like 13-year-old teenage kid.
yeah. That's the thing
For,
that shocked me the most, Casey, is that how like unlikable this kid starts out as. That I'm like, this is the savior. This little jackass is the guy we gotta.
but guess what? This is like an example of a 13-year-old snot nosed little
Yeah, you were that
shit
age,
in
right?
1991. Like his friend with the mullet. Yeah, like that is just how horrible he is. He's just a little, like I say, he's just a little shit. And yeah, that's a teenager, angst-ridden teenager in 1991. Uh, so he doesn't want to pay attention to his foster parents. He's not listening to him. He goes out on his little dirt bike. And now we got the T-800 and the T-1000 searching for John Connor in the streets of LA. Right?
Real quick, did they ever call Arnold the T-800 last time? Because I don't remember that.
No, I don't think they did. I think they just named him as like the Terminator.
Yeah, do they mention it in this, or is it just like ancillary,
I think
like
it is brought
known?
up. I think it's brought up, and it may have been brought up in one of the deleted scenes.
Mm.
Because I know he does refer to the new one as the T-1000.
Yeah, I heard that, and I was just like, yeah, I didn't know what to call this one, until I'm looking through the
It was
wiki
just
and stuff.
like look at what we had with the iPhone, and then eventually, now like I said, we had to go to the iPhone 2, and then 3GS, so on and so forth.
Yeah, so in your opinion, are they naming them like is there a T801 or is it like 800 to 850 to 900 or just 8 to 9 to 1000?
So I think it might depend on what kind of improvements are you making on it? Are they just small incremental improvements? So like especially like you play video games. So like when a patch comes out for video game, like you
It's
might
like
get
1.01.
yeah,
Yep.
or like for when the updates for iPhone comes out, it's like 2.0 or whatever. And then eventually like a small like that's a bigger one, right? There all these bug fixes and then maybe there's just a couple small things they got to fix and now you're like 2.0.01, 2.1, 2.1.1. So maybe there was like an 810, an 812, and then maybe it jumps to an 820 or an 850. Then there's an all new 900, and depending on what kind of advancements they're making with the Terminators, I think they're machines. They're smart enough to do this stuff.
Right.
Um, so they're trying to find him. Okay, snot nose John Connor and his friend with the mullet have a neat little thing that they're stealing money from an ATM with. Could work nowadays. I don't know if something like that existed back in 1991, but I'll be honest with you, that would have been great to have in 1991, especially at 13. We don't
Yeah,
have any
whose
money.
account is it taking it out of? Just like the last person that used it, you think, or is he just like
I don't
hacking
know.
into the ATM and getting whatever's in you know,
I
the
don't know.
bank of the ATM?
That's a good question. Um, and I mean, obviously they still have cameras and ATMs back then, but there's no identity theft was a much different thing back then because it imagine that havoc that would cause where it's like, well, it says you use your card. Uh,
Yeah, and like ATM cards were still pretty new, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, because a lot of people were still going into the bank to do their transactions and stuff.
and
So
when I was
ATM,
growing up, like we used cash a lot, until all of a sudden you're like there were some places that wouldn't take credit, you know?
there was I just saw something on YouTube. Burger King started accepting credit cards in like 1989. People thought it was like the end of the world.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
there's no gold actually on the Is that what people are always concerned about with the dollar value? It's like now we
I
don't
don't
use the
know,
gold standard and stuff.
but there's I mean, I was stationed at Fort Knox. I don't think there's anything in that depository, but that's just my opinion. I think there's stuff in there. I don't think it's gold. That might be where they keep like
Black
the
gold,
real that Texas tea.
Texas tea.
That might be where they keep like the real like Declaration of Independence and American treasures. And there might be just copies of it.
No, I think
I,
that's actually in the in the Mount Rushmore.
maybe
Have you
too.
seen have you seen National Treasure too?
Yes, yes. I
Okay,
love
okay. Me
National
too.
Treasure movies, man. They need a part three. But
Yeah, they're working on it apparently.
so what's the first thing they do? They go to the arcade. John is a kid after my heart. Yeah, if I got like $300 I took out from someone's thing, I'm buying like a bunch of like McDonald's or Burger King, and we're going to the mall and we're gonna be at the arcade. And everybody probably had a mall that was called the Galleria. So yeah, we're
Yes.
going to the Galleria, and we're going to the arcade, and we're playing horrible arcade games. Even though some of them looked a little old. I'm not sure if like Mortal Kombat and NBA Jam was out around this time, or like Street Fighter and stuff. This might be before, this might be slightly after. I can't remember, but yeah, there might have been a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game back then. But yeah, I'm definitely hitting up the arcade.
Oh, just real quick side tangent. My dad used to play indoor soccer at this place when I was growing up, and inside there, we would always go watch him play, and they had arcade, like just a few games lined up against the thing. But the games that always stuck out to me were they had the Ninja Turtle game, I think. They had the X-Men arcade game, and then they also had the Simpsons one where you can go around and just whack people with Bart's skateboard, and you're just playing as one of the Simpson members as you're
And basically, it's
going
just a
around.
beat 'em up like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but in the
Yes,
Simpsons
that's
world.
all. That's all you can really do on those type of style. It would either be that or like a scrolling shooter, like a plane or like Galaga type thing. Um, okay, Street Fighter was 1987.
Street Fighter 2. I don't know about the original Street Fighter.
Okay, Street Fighter 2. Let's double check that. Street Fighter 2 is 1991, so probably not
Ooh,
while this was filming.
yeah.
Simpsons
So I don't think
arcade game.
NBA Jam or Mortal Kombat was out either.
Oh, The Simpsons came out in 91 as well. So that was the year everything was really starting to hold up. They have this now on PlayStation and Xbox. Is that what I'm seeing here? I might have to see if I
Probably.
can get that.
So obviously, our Terminators end up at the Galleria. One or okay, the T-800 actually sees John Connor, right? So he follows him on his little dirt bike. I'm not sure. Well, the T-800 or the T-1000 goes to John's foster home, trying to find him. Can't find him. Takes it. Probably talked to a bunch of kids. Eventually, probably realized because he's a machine. Let's check them all because it's 1991. Where else are we gonna go with them all? So they end up there, track him down. Uh, what did you think of the T-1000 before you see the liquid metal and stuff? When you just see him as the cop wandering around the mall and his
I see. That's what's tough is because
yeah.
I got spoiled on the old liquid metal. So uh, I guess I thought. I mean, like I really like Robert Patrick because I've seen him in a whole bunch of other things. So I really enjoyed like him performing as him, but like as the T-1000, I don't think we got as much like. I guess we didn't get as much like seeing from his perspective. Like in the T-800, we got to see like his vision at times, and we got to see
Yeah.
like the dialogue
The,
options and stuff, but we
yeah.
didn't really get to see that on the T-1000 at all.
All right. So Patrick drew inspiration from Arnold's performance in Terminator, and he looked at hunting creatures, reptiles, insects, cats, and sharks. He based his expressions off of an eagle, keeping his head tilted down to imply constant forward movement. He also used military posture with martial arts to express the very fluid motion, different from the T-800's rigid motions, which kind of makes sense because the T-800 is more mechanical. The T-1000 is like it's a liquid metal thing, right? The role demanded he's lean and fast, and he's in good shape. So he learned to sprint without displaying heavy breathing and exhaustion, and he received specialized weapons training. Part of which was to operate and reload weapons without looking and eventually without blinking, which we see in this scene in the mall, where he just literally reaches down, grabs a magazine for his weapon, and throws it up, locks the barrel back in place, and just continues firing. I watched the scene like 3 or 4 times. He doesn't look. I can't like. I'm not good enough to tell if there was a cut somewhere in there. Doesn't look like it was cut. It looked like he literally just knew where it was, grabbed it, shoved it in there, and just kept going, and didn't blink the whole time. Um, I think he did a very good. He did a good job in portraying a much sleeker, more aerodynamic type killing machine
What I would
than
what I would say is I think he was scarier than Arnold in the first one.
that can be debated because I mean you got to think with Arnold. You don't like in the first one like I can see your point because especially when you see like the liquid metal stuff and different things that he's capable of doing, you're like, holy
Yeah,
shit!
well, once
Like,
he's laying down and he's got the bullet holes, and then he just gets right back up, you're like, how the hell are they ever gonna beat this guy?
uh, so yeah, they actually as well. He was in such good shape, right, that when John escapes on his dirt bike, the first couple times they filmed it, he actually caught up to the dirt bike. They had to rework the dirt bike to get it a little faster, so he wasn't able to catch up to the dirt bike.
Wow.
And if you look at him, he's the way he's running probably doesn't make the most sense as a runner. I don't run. I'm way too roly poly for that. But he does look very sleek and aerodynamic. Like it's amazing.
Oh,
So
this
this is
chase
where
scene, by the way, I just want to shout out, like, took me out of it a little bit. The like the
which
actual
one?
chase scene, like
Which
when
one?
he's
When he gets in the tractor trailer?
yeah, yeah, and mostly because they couldn't do what they can do today, which would be like CGing somebody's face on it, because there's a few times you obviously see Arnold's stunt double
Okay,
fool's face, his full
this
face.
this is something I was gonna bring up. I think with a couple of exceptions, the obvious use of stunt doubles, right? I think a lot of what's done in this movie holds up really well. But there's the obvious use of the stunt doubles between Arnold and Edward Furlong on the motorcycle. At one point, like you can clearly tell, like it's not either of them. There's one scene where and I wouldn't have noticed this if I didn't listen to that podcast I told you about, the Cinefix Top 100, where they talked about Terminator 2. When later on, when the T-1000 opens the elevator door and Arnold has his gun right there and blasts him in the head, for like one half of a split second, when it cuts to the back of the T-1000's head, you can see that it's already like split open. Like
Right,
the
right.
like the special effects are there and it's already like split open. But had I not heard about that
Hmm.
beforehand, I probably wouldn't have noticed it. But then when I watched it and then I rewound, like when I heard about it and I watched it, I rewound a couple times and I was like, yeah, it is. But otherwise, James Cameron is pretty damn good with his special effects and making sure they line up pretty well where the average person can't see or tell and be
Yeah.
like,
I
what was that?
If anybody watches that Light and Magic show on Disney Plus, I believe there is a scene where they're talking about either the abyss or this, where ILM's pretty much saying like, yeah, we can get this done, and they don't know if they can actually get it done, but they're like, we got to do it, like, and it has to look good for James. And they made it work, and they made it, I think part of it was the abyss for sure, because it's like this big water thing, and they wanted to perfect where it actually looked like water, and not just like this weird, creature type thing, because they want to make sure they got the reflections right on the water and make it look like it's fluid like water. And that kind of led them to this movie where you have,
Yeah.
the T-1000 being able to do the same sort of stuff.
All right. So outside of the obvious, not Arnold on the motorcycle, what did you like? What did you think of the actual like chasing?
Oh
Or
no,
what
the
would you?
effects. Yeah, I mean the effects and the chase scene was really great. That was really the only part that took me out, is seeing like, and I guess that's why they also put Arnold in the sunglasses again too, is they're probably hoping that, like, if you see less of the face, right, you're
Yeah.
hoping less people are going to pick up on it. But they held the shot for a pretty long time at times. I thought maybe like nowadays you would either get some more cheats, like shooting from the back, or uh or like I said, CGing their face on it. But the chase scene was pretty cool. um I really appreciated how John's friend is not a snitch. He told the T-1000 like, no, never seen that guy. And then he immediately goes to John and it's like, you got to get out of here, the cops are looking for
I'm gonna be honest with you. If you got a mullet, I'm kind of thinking you're on the snitch side.
you.
Maybe that's just me. I don't know. But I think with the mullet, I'm on. Like I can't. I don't know if I can trust you. But hey, whatever. Um,
Mullets were big back then.
remember too though. That chase scene was pretty like. So with that truck, they actually wanted to put the truck underneath the bridge, but then they realized they couldn't, and so James was like, "Well, the top's gonna have to come off."
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
So remember, like this is there have been action movies before, but I don't think we had seen a chase scene or anything like this in
Mm-mm.
in our action movies before. Um,
Yeah, where was that filmed? Is this the okay, Bull Creek Spillway. Looks pretty good. It reminds me of I was gonna say, is this the same place from Greece? It reminds me of a scene from Greece, but
might have been.
yeah, you haven't seen that, right?
No, no.
Yeah, that's coming.
So
Tell me
the
more. Yeah, go
Terminator,
ahead.
the Terminator and John get away. Okay, cool. Now at some point we meet back up with Sarah Connor. Sarah is now in a mental institution, which, let's be real, we don't know what she knows, right? We just hear this lady say that there's a machine that came back from the future to kill her son who's going to be the savior of mankind. And she was impregnated by a dude from the future.
Standard stuff.
So yeah,
You know,
like
for me,
she's gonna be in
Casey,
a mental institution.
this was the weakest part of the movie for me. I did not know any of this going in about Sarah Connor being in a mental institution. I do like how they brought back the doctor, but I felt like this part went on a little longer than I would like, and it took a while to reconnect her with the Terminator and with John. But uh, I think she has. Look, I don't think Sarah played this correctly. Okay, because from what we hear from John, when John's talking to the Terminator, he says, like, my mom would tell like every guy she brings home, this is the savior of the world, and they would look at her crazy. I'm like, why is she telling everyone? Just like raise your son, get him prepared. I don't know. I felt like that's the least you want to do, because then you're going to end up in the institution.
Okay, so uh, Sarah, she was written to be have become emotionally cold and a distant character compared to the Terminator. So they didn't want to start with Sarah; they wanted to start with John, right? Hamilton requested when she signs back on that she exhibit a crazy demeanor, explaining after years of living with the impending doom of humanity, she believes Sarah's going to transform into this untamed entity, a warrior combined with the psychologically unstable human. Quote, the T-800 is a better human than I am, and I'm a better Terminator than he is. I have to think she might be right. Like, if she's the only one who knows this, right? Like, no one else knows what she knows. And then let's be fair, like, it took a lot for her to even get on this, to get on the train to grasp the concept of all that. I don't know if there's any other way to play Sarah Connor in that aspect. Like, I don't think she can just try and keep a quiet life. Like, she knows that eventually the Terminators and the machines are gonna keep sending people or sending something back to try and kill her and her son. So, I guess like this might be like a Michael Keaton Batman thing. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. Like, what else? What else is she gonna do? She took a lot of preparation for the role. She worked as a trainer for 3 hours a day, 6 days a week. Had a strict low-fat diet. She lost 12 pounds of body weight. She also had judo military training from an Israeli commando. And Arnold Schwarzenegger also complimented her on her body. She was yoked in this one. Like, there's definitely a couple scenes where you can tell like she put in work to 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 get that body. But you also got to think she's got to try and keep herself in some sort of decent shape, because she's got to try and stay alive as long as she can for the hope of her son, right? I can see your point that it probably took too long, and I agree. They probably took way too long. They might not have needed some of the stuff with like the doctor bringing like the
The
students around.
students, yeah.
They probably could have just had maybe one or two scenes between her and the orderly. Not sure how cool I am about the dude licking her face.
Yeah, what the hell was that?
He's a weirdo.
That
And
was the weirdest scene in the whole franchise I've seen so far. I'm like, what?
which tells me he was probably sexually abusing other patients, which in mental institutions in the 80s and 90s, happened a lot more than people want to think. So that probably was happening. I think the fact that Sarah Connor was a little more dangerous than the other ones were was probably why she wasn't sexually assaulted by this
I'm
orderly.
assuming too this was like a test to see if she's actually out. Like they injected her, right? Or like
At some
because
point she did, yeah, but at
because
some
she's
point
like
they did,
staring like as if she's like knocked out with her eyes open.
yeah.
And he's like, I guess is the way I took it was he's like, let's see if you really are. Like nobody would be able to sit still with me licking their face, but it's a weird, a
The one
weird
thing I
thing.
love more than anything was when she asked the doctor, "How's the knee?" Oh, that's just great. She causes havoc. She manages to get out. She actually learned how to pick locks with a paperclip.
So
So
if somebody
Linda
breaks into your
Hamilton
house,
did.
it might be Linda Hamilton.
So she breaks out. She beats the hell out the orderly, which probably deservedly so. Not gonna lie, didn't really feel a lot of sympathy for him in that point. Um, she does a lot of different things. She manages to grab a syringe and gets
Yeah.
she. Okay, I'm sure she might have killed the doctor just because when she takes the syringe, she puts it in the the drain cleaning additive or whatever it is, the Drano. So that means there's Drano on the outside of the needle and probably like leaking out of the needle. And then she puts it in the dude's neck. So he's already got Drano coursing through his veins. Can't be like I don't know how much you need. Can't imagine it's a lot, but I'm sure there's going to be some pain in there. Just I don't know. She's fighting with cops and various other things. And oh, before that, did you catch the dogs again?
Yes, I wrote down in my notes here. I said I love hearing the dogs barking like mad when the T-1000 shows up, and it's when he's acting as the cop, and he's like, "Where's John?" And the dog's losing his mind. I'm assuming it's the same dog from the first movie that she had because I'm guessing when she got institutionalized, the dog and John went to the foster house because it looked like another German Shepherd.
I don't think it would be because
And the way
for
that the
one,
dad
like
was
12
talking
years
about
or
it,
so, like 12 years or so, she might have put in the John that he always needs to have a dog
oh,
around
okay,
him, like because that will help. But one, between just the age of the dog.
true, yeah,
Two, I've been in the foster care system, although in a different state. I was a foster kid when I was younger. I didn't have a dog, but I don't think they're going to let you keep that dog because then that kind of limits where they can place you.
yeah. The only reason I thought that is because the dad was like, didn't you like almost like saying it's John's dog of like, did John
Now, it
like
could be maybe he
feed the
found the
dog or
dog,
whatever?
brought it home, did
Yeah.
something. But then, yeah, so there was the dog earlier when he goes to that door, and then there was the dog uh, when the T1000 is acting like he's the foster mom,
Yes. Yep.
and the
Yep.
dog's going crazy. And John picks up on that, which I don't.
I love the Terminator asking what is the dog's name and then saying,
Yeah,
okay,
giving a completely different
yeah,
name. Yeah.
is Woofy all right? Oh yeah, Woofy's fine. It's like, all right, that's not her. They're already dead.
And he's just blunt. Your foster
Yep.
parents are dead. Click. Wait a minute, dude. Like, oh, come on now. But I mean, it was right, but it was just like, nope, they're dead. And that's when they decide they want to, like, they need to go save John's mom. So, as Sarah's escaping, okay, I love the scene of when she comes face to face with Arnold. She's running down the
Yes.
hall. She's got this whole badass thing going, but just coming face to face with Arnold again stops her dead in her tracks and
Yeah,
puts
it's
the
actually
fear
like
of
very
God
real.
in her. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very real. Like that was the person hunting you. This is the person you've been trying to train your son against. This is the person you think is going to come back and hunt you again. So it makes a lot of sense that she's like, freaked
And
out.
remember, they showed her a picture earlier that
Hmm.
said he was back, basically, because they had the scene where they were like, this is from surveillance footage in 1985. He killed 17 cops. I think it
Yes,
was
yeah.
17. And he's like, this is footage from an incident in the mall earlier. So, like, they think she knows who he is, but, like, they're not going to listen to who he is anyway. So she knows he's back, right?
It's also like he hasn't
But,
aged a day.
I mean, he put the fear of God into her. And that would, Like that scene is just so great, where she just, I mean, she stopped dead in her tracks and is just like, oh no.
Well, yeah, it's one of those scenes too that like I think is effective because it is so real, but also you're let in on the secret at that point. So you're like, no, no,
Yeah.
just listen. Just
Yes.
listen,
You already know
Sarah.
what's going on, but
Yeah,
she
yeah,
doesn't, and that makes it
yeah.
so great. You can obviously tell she does not trust the T-800, right? Rightfully so. But let's be realistic. I kind of get that one. But yeah, what did you think when they showed the T-1000 walking through the bars?
Well, honestly, my first thought was, oh, that's the scene from that show I watched. But no, it was pretty cool, and then especially that like it's catches him for a moment
Because
because
he's
the
holding the
gun.
gun.
Yeah, and then he has to like turn his arm to like get it through, but um it's so much more tense, of course, in that scene than when you're just watching a behind the scenes thing and you haven't seen the movie. You're like, oh crap, like here he comes, and I think this whole fight, this is probably my favorite of the action scenes. Is this like escape from the mental hospital when we're talking about the Terminator so far out of the first two? Um, because there's a lot at stake. You also have some really great moments. Like I wrote one down here where the security guard, right, is security guard or janitor or whatever. He's getting coffee,
Yeah.
and he asks the other lady if she wants any. No, and he's like, "Oh, I got a full house. Must be my lucky day." And then he dies. I was like, as soon as he said that, you obviously know he's gonna die. But
Yeah,
I'm like,
you're not
oh,
gonna make it.
it's like those guys that are like, "I'm retiring,"
Two more
this week.
days and I'm done. Yeah, 2 more
Yeah,
days. No,
yeah.
no.
But that happens, and there's just a tension too of like when she first escapes and she's looking like she's running down the hallway, and then you have him walking down the other side of the hallway with like
Yeah.
the big the windows and like the courtyard, I guess, of the mental hospital in between them is really tense.
So
Especially
shout
like,
out to the.
sorry, I was just
Good.
gonna say the last part too, when they're in the elevator and like it is like a fight for them to try to get out of there. It's all very tense, and I had no clue how it was gonna happen from there.
Shout out to the security guard and his twin brother, who played the other dude. And they also used him and his twin
Wow, so
brother
they just didn't
in
film it
Gremlins.
twice, huh? They actually had a
They,
twin?
yeah, he has a twin brother. They used him. I think they used him as a twin in Gremlins, one of the Gremlins movies. They also Linda Hamilton also has a twin sister. They use her later in this movie.
Oh, what's her name? Lisa?
I forget, but they use her twin sister. Um, so yeah, they have some great tension defining moments.
Wow,
Lots of
Linda
shooting.
Linda Hamilton's from Maryland, by the way. So we claim her. All right, cool.
She lost some hearing in one of her ears in that elevator because she forgot to put her earplugs back in.
In real
So
life, she lost her hearing doing that scene?
she has some
Oh
permanent
my
hearing
god.
loss from that. Great scene at the T-1000 chasing after the truck. He jumps on it, clips on. They finally get him off. Edward John Connor pulls his arm or his little hand thing out, and it kind of links back up with him. So for now, they're safe, right? So let's talk about a guy we haven't talked about yet, Miles Dyson.
Mm-hmm.
This could have been a much different movie because they wanted Denzel Washington to play Miles Dyson. He turned it
Yeah, I
down.
just saw that.
He turned it down. Quote, no offense to Jim Cameron, but when I read the script, I thought, all he does is look scared and sweat. I had to pass. Understandable.
Well, I'll say good, because I think Joe Morton did a hell of a job on this.
He did fantastic. Joe Morton was 100% great in this.
Yeah.
So let's jump a little earlier. The first time we see Miles Dyson, right? He's walking through Cyberdyne.
Mm-hmm.
He's got this other dude He's talking about, can I see it? Or where did it come from? Did you know? Did you have any idea what the it they were talking about was?
I didn't know it was going to be the arm, but I thought it was going to be one piece of the Terminator for sure. I just didn't know what part. I thought maybe it'd be like, because they also had a chip, right? But I
Yeah,
was thinking maybe it would just be the chip. I didn't think we would see the arm, but it makes sense because they want you to be able to recognize it like pretty quickly.
yeah.
As well, if you're a
A chip
person
means
watching the
nothing to the
movie,
average person, even if you've
right?
seen
You're
the
not gonna
first
be
one.
like,
The chip means
what
nothing.
what is that? What is that that they have? Yeah.
You may not even recognize it as a computer chip, but when you see
Hmm.
that arm, you're gonna
Especially
know
back
that's from
then,
the Terminator. Yeah.
right? Like 91. I don't know if anybody's like, oh yeah, computer chip.
So, did you remember from the beginning that when the Terminator got crushed from part one, when the Terminator got crushed, his arm got kind of separated?
I did not remember it was the arm. No.
Neither did I. I mean, no, I know now, but the first time I saw it, I forgot. I was like, wait, did that happen? I don't remember it.
Hmm.
But obviously now, like when when I watched it the first time, I was like it took so much not to say anything a couple weeks ago. Like, remember that arm, but like I ruined it for you. So yeah,
And
that
this scene also comes, I think, right after her hospital scene, right, where she says
yeah,
that, like, where the doctor's like, nobody ever found anything there. She's like, they're keeping it under wraps, so it kind of clues you in, I think, but I didn't know what it was gonna be.
and it was a robotics factory that it got crushed in that happened.
Hmm.
So yeah, so Miles Dyson works at Cyberdyne, and he talks about later how when they got the arm and they got the chip, it was something that was so advanced. It was something they had never seen before, something that they never could have dreamed of. And that led them to start the reverse engineering and the advanced thinking that led to them creating everything that they did. So this goes back to our conversation a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago of if the robots don't send back the Terminator in the original one, right, to kill John Connor,
Hmm.
and John doesn't send his father back, which leads them to the robotics factory where the T-800 gets crushed, and Cyberdyne ends up with that chip in the arm. Does any of this happen?
The answer is no, right? Like, I feel like it's pretty clear with what we've been given, with the fact that John's not born without being sent back, right?
Him sending
Without
his father back, yeah.
without sending his father back. So I think we're in this. I think we're in this thing here now where I wish our characters would kind of get that understanding. I mean, she kind of mentions it at the end of the last episode. I mean, at the last movie, but it's kind of like this is fate almost. Like, I feel like, is there a way to actually stop everything that's going to happen? Because so far everything has led to exactly what you've been
Has
trying to
needed to
prevent.
happen in order to
Yeah.
happen.
Like, I would think as soon as she realizes she's pregnant with that guy's kid, it's like, shit, like, this is our this is our perpetual cycle now, right? Like, we're in the cycle. Um
To an extent. But she doesn't know that the company that became Cyberdyne kept the chip in the arm that
right,
led
right.
to Miles
But
Dyson creating the machines
but now that
and
she does, it's
creating
got to be like screaming at her, right? I
what
mean,
becomes, yeah, and you see that she eventually. So what ends up happening? So before we get to that, they're on the run. They're in like the California deserts. Blah blah blah. There's a deleted scene on the DVD uh where Arnold is talking to John about uh how his chip was they turned his chip to learn. And so there's a deleted scene where they show him taking the chip out, doing some other tweaking on it to turn it to like be able to learn more emotions and things. And at one point, Sarah grabs it and she's gonna try and destroy it. But John stops her. But you see yet later on when she gets the full story that Cyberdyne and blah 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 and Miles Dyson, and he creates everything that eventually becomes Skynet, which comes online in 1997 or whatever the case is. That's when she goes crazy because she feels, okay, if I can kill
Yeah.
Miles Dyson, this doesn't happen, which makes sense. Like, once again, we kind of go back to if I go back and kill Hitler before he's Hitler, maybe we don't have the Holocaust and all the bad things that came from that. Kind of with her on that one. Sucks that she's got to go kill an innocent dude, right? But I mean, I don't know. Is he so innocent? Like he says, he doesn't know what he's going to create is going to be the end of all mankind. So he's innocent, but is he? Because he still creates the stuff that stops all of that, kills all of mankind. I don't know. Kind of heavy thing to think about. But think about
Also,
it.
if anybody really likes this type of time travel and this cycles and stuff, I recommend the German show Dark on Netflix because it's 3 seasons, it's complete, and it has a perfect it wraps up everything like pretty well, and you get to see scenes and you get revelations about stuff. And it's kind of that time travel of, are you actually changing it or is it part of the cycle? So I definitely recommend that for people.
So she goes off and she decides she's going to kill Miles Dyson. So now you're Miles Dyson. Got a great day at work. You've got what looks like a multi-million-dollar home. You're living large. Got the good life going. Okay. He's got a wife, his kid. Wife's trying to put the kid to bed. He's clicking and clacking away, which I don't understand why every time they show computer coders and things like working on a computer, they have to be typing away like madmen. I don't know anything about coding. Excuse me. I don't know if it's all that, but he was typing way too much there for what he was probably doing.
I feel sorry
He's
for his
thinking,
kid. His kid's wearing like a Minnesota Twins hat, I think. Poor
maybe he's
kid.
from Minnesota and he got scooped up out there. You never know, right?
Yeah.
Not only that, but like maybe it's later in the evening, so maybe once the kid goes to bed, there's some sexy time later. Like, hey, got a pretty good night going so far.
Actually, I should also say 1991, the Twins did win the World Series too. So actually,
Yeah,
the kid was probably
Kirby
feeling
Puckett.
pretty good.
Kirby Puckett was an all star and all time great. And then this, pardon my language, this crazy bitch just decides to shoot up your house and is trying to kill you from out of nowhere. You don't know what's going on. Excuse me. And then they break down to him. Like, then all of a sudden, okay, now we get the T-800 and John comes in, takes the kid away, and he's like showing. Cuts his arm off and shows. And for the rest of the movie, Arnold's in a glove. And then this is where I told you last time we get the quote. We explained everything to him. I think he took it pretty well. If you were Miles Dyson and they explain that to you, what is going through your head?
I think it's one of those where you don't want to believe it, right? Because you've probably been working so hard for all of this stuff. I mean, it's hard to believe too because she just shot up the place instead of talking rationally for a bit. But when he shows the hand, and you have that hand in the other safe, I think it cements it that you're like, oh, they might be telling the truth. But really, this is going to be the end of Dyson because he's going to end up dying when he goes back. So he's got a pretty unfortunate last 5 hours. I don't know, however long this is, a couple hours.
But yeah, so like they show him kind of sitting at the table, and the T-800 is kind of giving him the history. This is when this happened. Excuse me, I got the hiccups right now, so I'm trying to hold it in. This is when this happens. Blah, blah, blah. And he explains to him that what you create is going to eventually lead to Skynet, which is going to come online, start thinking for itself, and eventually lead to firing a nuclear strike on Russia, which leads to them firing a nuclear strike on the United States, which is eventually going to lead to the machines taking over and all of mankind being. You're responsible for the end of mankind. Like, I don't even know how I probably would throw up.
Yeah, I mean, it's something tough for sure to be like, you're thinking you're probably doing good work, right? You're probably thinking, I'm working with computers. We found this thing. It's going to revolutionize. Look, maybe they're even thinking like, if somebody lost an arm, we can replace it with a metal arm. If we keep learning this stuff using computer, they're probably thinking all good thoughts, good things. But sometimes that's how it happens, right? You're trying to you come out with maybe a good idea for something. Somebody's able to twist it. In this case, it's the machines themselves that end up learning too much and turning against you.
There's also the fact that he brings up, well, aren't we changing things now?
Hmm.
I don't know, because is he changing things, or are they putting stuff in motion that has to happen?
Yeah, good question too. Because like, if they said that he did all of this work on it and stuff, and he dies now, because that was her whole plan was to kill him, right? But he dies in the battle just like a couple hours later. So it's like, did they change anything? Because I guess he was supposed to have a longer life, but look, and again, they kind of wrap up this movie as if it's probably the end, right? Like, I feel like that's how this movie kind of ends. You do get Arnold saying, like, I'll be back, and he melts, but he melts to be like the last chip so nobody else gets the chip type of thing. So I'm just kind of curious on, you know, what the intention of was when they were writing it. Of did they when they were writing it, did they think that they'd like, oh, this is the end? They changed things, everything's good. But I know when we go back in like 2 weeks and we watch Rise of the Machines,
Yeah,
there's
there's
going
a
to be another twist of guess what? There's more of them,
but
and
at
I'm
this,
wondering how they'll put that in there.
I can't remember if they do, or if they do or don't. I'm not sure. Uh, what I will say is, the one good thing is, you can't tell me a good tech company wouldn't have an offsite backup for all of Dyson's work. I think even in 1991, I think us as the average people didn't know about backing up our stuff as much, right? With computers and things, we were still learning about backing up your information. Plus, most stuff fit on floppy disk. Like, let's be realistic. In 1991, we're using like 3.5 floppy disks, and various various other things to back up our stuff. But you can't tell me that in that basement of the Cyberdyne building, or off site somewhere, that they didn't have some sort of backup for his work. You can't tell me that they probably didn't think to, even though he tried to destroy his work at home, that they probably still didn't have backups at home. And remember, they also felt they had to get out of there quick, so they might have just destroyed the first initial copies and not his backups that he had at home. They go to Cyberdyne. They're trying to destroy stuff. Cops get called. Great line. Cops are here. How many? All of them?
Yeah, yeah.
Under the circumstances, especially when they find out it's Sarah Connor is one of the suspects, and the suspect wanted in the 1985 killing of 17 police officers. Yeah, every cop that can get involved in that is going to be up there. But we also have, remember, Arnold made a no killing promise. Forgot to talk about that
Yes.
earlier. He
I
promised
know. I
to.
have it in my notes here too. When he just shoots the security guard in the knee, and then he just looks at Johnny and says, "He'll live."
He
It's
does
so
the
good.
same thing in this. Like, he shoots
Yeah.
everybody in the leg. He takes the gas grenades and he's just like hitting them in the back, or just shoot. And then,
Yeah. Yeah.
Terminator vision comes on. Casualties, 0. Even with the minigun, he wasn't aiming at anybody. He was just
Hmm.
aiming at the
Hmm.
cars. Casualties, 0. Um, so uh, T1000 shows up. So that podcast talked about the Cinefix Top 100. They debated and felt that when they wrote it, they worked backwards in the scene. Like, James Cameron was like, I want to take a motorcycle, and drive it from a building into a helicopter. Now we got to figure out how to get from that's the end point. We got to figure out how to get there. So he's taking the helicopter. So he's taking the motorcycle up the stairs. They're escaping. That's when he takes the helicopter. Uh, the chase scene with the helicopter now. That was a real scene.
Wow.
That was a real helicopter pilot. Cameron worked the camera on that one twice. He had to work it once, I think, from the helicopter and once from the vehicle down below because it was too dangerous and no one else was willing to do it.
That's crazy.
But they had that was it, an actual helicopter and pilot who flew that helicopter under a bridge.
Huh.
Chase scene again. The liquid nitrogen I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, the first time I saw it, I thought the liquid nitrogen was the end of it. Even though they were in an iron factory, or I don't know what they're making there. It's like a video from the 1980s. It's a factory that just pours molten steel all over the place and just has sparks going everywhere.
Yeah.
But
the people's idea of a factory, right?
I thought that was the end of it because I thought, okay, like he kind of shattered him. Like at this point, he shouldn't be any good. But because it's so hot in there, he comes back together. Did you notice the T-1000 glitching after this?
No, I don't think I did. Glitch how?
So like after he comes back together, like you can kind of see where he glitches and like his shape kind of wobbles.
Oh yeah.
Like he's like a computer. He's having glitches because he's been blowed up, put back together, and everything. So he's kind of on his last legs. More fighting. This is where we get, like I said, we get to see Linda Hamilton's twin sister. There's also a deleted scene.
I looked it up, by the way. Her name was Leslie, and she actually passed away in 2020.
Oh man, that is unfortunate. There was a scene, a deleted scene where one of the reasons John is able to recognize that the first one is the T-1000 is he looks down, and because they're in this factory with molten lava and sparks and it's so hot in there, the T-1000's feet are kind of in the shape of the grate and everything. So it's like it's kind of like a molten liquid thing that looks like the grate and everything that they're standing on, and then it starts turning into her legs. So that's how he's able to recognize that that's not his mom. And then like Linda Hamilton pulls up and like tells him, "Get out the way, get down," whatever the case is.
Yeah, the classic, right? This is the classic. Knowing who is having the family have to know which one is which. Yeah.
So what did you think about? What did you think about the fact that okay, they destroy the chip, they destroy the arm, and then all it says he has to destroy him because he still has a chip left?
I thought it was a good way to wrap it up, really. And I was just reading that this was after this movie came out and everybody wanted to make another one. James Cameron said, "I think this one wrapped it up all pretty well, and we don't have to do a third one." But money talks, and he wasn't part of the third movie. But I thought it was a good way to wrap it up. Where if I had not known there was a third one, would have been pretty well satisfied. It's like, okay, yeah, because he can't really hang around because somebody can at one point find him, and the same way that John sort of rewired him, somebody could get the chip, and then they're back in business, and they're back in business to make Skynet and stuff. So I thought it was a nice, noble sacrifice from a character I was really starting to love, and I loved his relationship with John. How John's telling him what certain phrases mean, and We get the Hasta la Vista. I had no clue how that originated with the whole Schwarzenegger part at all. I think I knew it was Terminator, but I had no clue it was from
Like,
John just telling him all
yeah,
these sayings and stuff, which I
which
thought
is
was really
something
cute
that's
and
something a
and great.
douchey kid in like a douchey teenager in
Uh
1999
huh.
would do. Just like with the two guys that come to save him, he's like, "Did you call moi?" You know.
Yeah, and
So
just kind of like needing a catchphrase, right? Like that's kind of what he was telling him to do. Like say something cool.
all right, so that final scene where he says the line, "I cannot self-terminate. You must lower me into the steel." They added it. Arnold added it in post-production. Originally, the scene was the Terminator silently gives Sarah the controls to the winch, but when they screened it for test audiences, they couldn't audiences couldn't figure out why. Like the audience members would ask like, "What? Why is he having her kill it? Like that doesn't make any sense." So I think that's a good ad right there. Like if you
Yeah,
think
yeah.
about it, they're like we see the scene as it is, but if we take just the context of what he says out, and now you try and think of that scene without it, it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Um, that and the theme song, do 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 do, like that is just, just
Yeah, the music's really good. Theme song for the Terminator is really good.
okay. So before we go on, let's talk about some other things. Okay, uh, Terminator 2 earned 4 Academy Awards: Best Makeup,
Wow.
Best Sound, Best Visual Effects, and Best Visual Effects Editing. Also had nominations for Best Cinematography and Best Film Editing. It was the first film to win an Academy Award when its predecessor had not even been nominated.
Wow. This was a huge increase of box office. The first one had 78 million. We're looking at 519 million
Yeah.
dollars made in the box office. It's huge.
So Edward Furlong, young John. Okay, before we get to that, they originally cast Billy Idol
Hmm.
before he had a motorcycle accident. In a 2021 retrospective, Cameron says Idol had an interesting aesthetic, but in hindsight, he probably wouldn't have casted it. A singer by the name of Blackie Lawless of the rock band Wasp was also considered, but deemed too tall. They were going to play the T-1000. Edward Furlong. Hundreds of kids tried to play the role of young John Connor. He gets it at his last audition. Cameron said he believed early candidates for the role were either overexposed in other media or they came from advertising backgrounds, which trained him to be young, perky, happy, like for these roles and like what people want to see when they go to castings and stuff. Furlong had no acting experience. He was discovered in a Boys and Girls Club in Pasadena. Now, I think this is something you don't see nowadays. I think it stopped sometime in the 2000s. But if you look back from maybe the mid 2000s before, you hear and see a lot of stuff of like young actors or young models being discovered at like football games or in the mall, or like I think Pamela Anderson was at like a CFL game. Edward Furlong came from the Boys and Girls Club in Pasadena
Yeah,
and
now
stuff
it's
like that.
all social media, right?
But just I don't even. It might happen a little bit in social media, but I don't think it. I think now the system is too set up for it to not happen. Like, but back then you would hear a lot of stuff about. I don't know. I saw this kid in the mall and there was just something about him. And maybe because now we look at it like, why are you looking at a kid in the
Yeah,
mall
yeah. You
for?
want to watch how you say that, right? Like,
Yeah,
I couldn't keep my eyes off this kid.
yeah, weird, creepy stuff. Um, Cameron wanted a minority character to be integral to the changing of the world, which is why you want Denzel. You got Joe Morton. Morton avoided interacting with the cast so that their on-screen relationship would be believably distant. Makes sense. Um, the now destroyed Corral Bar in Sylmar, where the T-800 confronts the bikers. It was raised above ground, allowing the scene to take place over different levels. The 1991 police beating of Rodney King took place at the same location, a week after filming, and it was captured on the same videotape that a spectator used to capture the filming of some of the biker bar scenes from his house. So production took a while, several months, and when you're a teenager, 6, 7, 8 months, it can cause some issues. Furlong
Yeah,
hits a
yeah,
growth
because they
spurt.
have shorter days for kids.
Not only that, but just in general, you're going through puberty, man.
True, true.
Production, he had a growth spurt, so they had to make adjustments while they're shooting. He's noticeably younger in the desert scenes than in other scenes. For one scene, late in the schedule, they had to put a hole in the ground so he could maintain height continuity with Linda Hamilton and some other stuff with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Also, his voice cracks in one or two scenes, and he had to redub a lot of his lines in post-production, except for one. There's one scene where Cameron kept it in because James Cameron felt the emotion he had at that time would be very realistic and with what he was saying to Arnold. So, like, there's one scene where his voice cracks in the movie, but everything else he had to do a lot of stuff in post-production. Stan Winston, special effects guru. I think he has like 4 Academy Awards himself. Studied hours of nuclear test footage, right, to make Sarah Connor's nuclear nightmare scene as realistic as humanly possible. They make a miniature Los Angeles to simulate it. So they used
Nolan would be like, we're doing a real nuclear explosion.
They mimicked all destroyed masonry. They used Maxwell's crackers and shredded wheat. After each take, it took about 2 days to set the model up to shoot it again. Late 1991, several U.S. federal nuclear testing labs unofficially declared it the most accurate depiction of a nuclear blast ever created for a fictional motion picture.
Wow. I could tell it was a model, I think, but it looked really damn good.
Special effects members have stated several times that no scene they've worked on has received an equivalent amount of praise or emotional feedback from viewers. I haven't seen Oppenheimer. I will at some point, and I'm curious to see what their nuclear scenes look like. But this one was definitely one of those where it was like, Jesus, like is it like even back then, the first time I saw it, I was like, is this what happens during a nuclear blast? Like, because you don't really have any context for it. Like, you see in the mushroom cloud, and you might read some descriptions or something, but you still don't have a context for what actually might happen or what we think might happen from where it is. So Schwarzenegger makes $15 million for the movie, right? He has about 700 words of dialogue. They worked that out, $21,429 per word. So the phrase "Hasta la vista, baby" costs $85,716.
That's awesome.
Finally,
Just want to say that budget for Arnold is double the budget of the original film.
of the original movie, yeah.
Yeah, the original film was like 7 mil, I think, that we talked about. So, yeah.
You know who American Film Institute is, right? AFI? Okay.
Yeah.
Terminator is the only character listed on both the 100 heroes and 100 villains.
Interesting.
Al Pacino and Schwarzenegger are the only 2 actors to be on the list playing both a hero and both a villain.
All right, so
but Pacino's
hero is Scarface, right? Who's
I don't know, but he's on there for 2 separate characters.
Yeah, probably Scarface for the villain, and
Arnold is on there for playing the same character. 13 other actors and actresses appear twice or more, but either as all heroes or all villains, never as both.
Frank Serpico is Al Pacino's hero character, which is from
Attica? No, what is it?
No, it is a in the movie Serpico. Okay. A biography, 1973.
And the other one was Scarface?
I believe so. I mean, I can't picture it being anything
Maybe one of the his
else.
Corleone character from The Godfather.
100 heroes and villains. Let's do this. Al Pacino, Serpico, and oh no, it is Corleone from Godfather Part Two.
That's it. The only other one I could have thought of is when he played the devil in Devil's Advocate.
Mm.
He played a hell of a devil.
I still haven't seen Godfather, so that either part.
Now on to some ratings. On IMDb, 8.6 out of 10 for with over 1.1 million people rating it. It is on the IMDb top 250 movies at number 30. Interesting note. Number 7, Return of the King. Number 9, Fellowship of the Ring. Number 13 is The Two Towers. You know what number 8 is?
Return of the King.
No, that's number 7. I just said.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Did you list all three of
7
Fellowship
is
of the
Return
Ring?
of the King. 9 is Fellowship of the Ring. 13 is The Two Towers.
Okay. Okay.
What do you think is number 8?
Is it Terminator? Two.
It's Pulp Fiction.
Oh. Sorry, that movie is so far off my radar. It's like number 400 on my list.
All right. So Metacritic, 22 critic reviews. It is rated 75.
Pretty
1,295 user reviews. It's got an 8.9. The lowest critic review, for whatever reason, on here, it's rated at 30 from the New Republic from August 12th, 1991. I don't get it. But
how reputable is the New Republic? What's their credentials here?
I'm not gonna act like I know what it is, but if Metacritic is using it as an actual like legitimate reviewer, I don't know.
It is a newspaper, the New Republic.
Founded in 1914.
Yeah. Never really heard of it.
Magazine commentary on politics, contemporary culture, and the arts. Based in Washington, D.C. It's still going, apparently.
Yeah.
USA Today gave it a 75. Entertainment Weekly gave it 83. So, I mean... Alright, so for me, like I said, this... To me, we don't have the modern action movie without Terminator 2. Without James Cameron's genius behind it. For me, this is a 5 out of 5. What say you?
All right, so to recap, gave the first one a 4. Just looked. I gave Pulp Fiction a 1. I gave Goonies 3.5, and I gave 13 Ghosts 1.5. And Terminator I gave 4. Terminator 2 I'm giving a 4.5. Giving it a 4.5. I think the expectations were a little too high for me after hearing so much about the second one, so it didn't reach the 5. My biggest knock on it is probably still just the Sarah Connor being apart from them for so long. And then it just felt a little like that part kind of dragged. The rest of it was really great. The action scenes were awesome, but
most of the effects held up except for the couple obvious stunt
except for the stunt
things.
Guy. Yeah, but no 5s for me yet on my brand new movies that I'm seeing for the first time. But yeah, so there you go, 4.5. And I sat on this for a while. I just rated it today. I watched it Friday, and I've just been kind of sitting since Friday. Like, is it a 4.5? Is it a 5? Like, where am I landing on this? And that's where I landed today.
Okay, let me ask you this: if you are a teenager in the mid 1990s and you see this for the first time, do you rate it higher or lower?
Huh.
15-year old, say you're 15 years old in like 1993 when it comes out on VHS. You get to watch it for the first time.
That's a good question. Because I think my tastes have changed a lot since I was that young. I think I would probably rate it around the same, honestly.
Because like I say, you also don't have like 30 years of people, bringing it up to you, saying how great it is. So it doesn't have like
True, it may
favorable
have been a
expectations.
5 then just because of that. And I think even if I hadn't heard that constantly, like with anybody I talked about it, like, hey, like I've been telling people we're doing this show and I'm watching Terminator 1 and 2 and,
Oh, it's so
3.
good. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, yeah, stuff like that. So, yeah, it may have been higher. I think I just had like I thought there would be more time travel esque stuff in this movie. Um, we didn't see we didn't see too much of that. Um, it really focused on. I think the best part of the movie is probably the Arnold and John relationship. And how he's getting closer. He's kind of having like a real friend for once and a
A real father.
protector.
Remember,
Yeah,
he's never had a father. So this Terminator is like the closest thing to a father figure for him.
right. But a father
Um,
figure, he can boss around and he'll listen.
and oh, another thing, it's so perfect where he's like, "Oh, you have to listen to whatever I say," which is the douchey thing a 13-year-old kid is gonna do.
But John has ethics, right? He's like, no killing. I like that.
And then Linda Hamilton had a comment because I guess John and Edward Furlong and Arnold did spend time bonding on set and everything, especially since their characters did have to spend so much time together. And and she said she wasn't surprised because emotionally they were both the same age.
That's
But
the that's the future governor of California.
so I wonder if we went back in time and stopped that from happening, what happens?
Stop
So,
what from
but
happening?
him becoming the governor of California.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. What
Yeah.
is his legacy there? Because I feel like did people like him as governor?
I'll be honest, I don't know. It was like
It was after you. It was before you,
it
right?
was
Got
way
there.
before me and everything,
Yeah.
and then he had the whole scandal with his maid. And, I mean, maybe his marriage is still being intact. I don't know, but
Yeah. Who was he
um,
married to? That. Oh yeah, Maria
Marie
Shriver.
Shriver.
Yeah.
Um,
His daughter is marrying Chris Pratt, right?
or is married to Chris Pratt or something. I don't know,
Yeah, I think
maybe.
they might be married now. Yeah, they are.
Um, but for me, especially after I'm watching this now and thinking more of it, the time travel aspects of these movies really are starting to like make me go down wormholes of like because it doesn't touch on it, and I haven't seen all of them, and I think the later ones do touch on it more because I think they try and rewrite some of this with
They
before
have
it
to,
before.
right? Because I mean, it wrapped up so well in this one. They have to like keep coming up with ideas, and then you also have to probably like when you bring back Linda Hamilton at one point, you have to probably excuse some stuff of like John is in like the timeline's in trouble again because John you know and Sarah Connor are like I think when you bring them back and they did bring her back for at least one or two of them,
Yeah.
I think you have to kind of keep bringing up the time travel stuff because you have to think like how do we tell another story with her in it.
Well, plus they have to keep bringing Terminators back, so
Right, right.
like they have to keep bringing Terminators in there, like so.
I want to know how they excuse the Arnold looking like 60 in the latest one.
Well, I don't know. I think they can de-age him.
I know, but I think on the poster he's got like the gray hair and the
Oh,
beard
and the
and stuff.
beard.
So
Yeah.
I'm wondering, uh, eh, there's like his outside skin ages just like human. Like I really want to know how they say that.
I don't I don't know, but I think just the aspect of the whole time travel thing. Like one I haven't watched, but I really want to watch is Looper as well because I heard that's a really good time travel movie.
Yes, I've seen Looper. It's great. Yeah, I like it. I'll write that on
Um,
the list. Maybe we'll come around to that.
okay, well I'll hold off on watching it
Or
until
you
it comes
can
out.
if you want. It's fine. I don't like that's not one of my like go to like we have
No,
to watch this. So if you get around to it, just let me know and I can remove it. But yeah.
but just like I said, just the aspect because okay, so now he destroys himself in the chip, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that means none of this should have happened. Which okay, so now is that an alternate timeline?
Yeah.
Or is that the main timeline? And is the alternate timeline the one where the machines came online and tried to take over the world? Is that
Mm-hmm.
an alternate timeline where they're trying to go back to the main timeline and fix some things so they can take over that timeline as well? I don't know. It's a lot to try and figure out.
Yeah, and I think that's why like James Cameron was like, "Oh, that's it. Like that's a good one to go go out on." And you know, this is where we start getting the rights you know, the rights carousel here as it goes round and round, starting pretty much with the third one. And even Arnold tried to get James to go in with him and get the rights for pretty cheap, but James Cameron wasn't interested. It says so.
So yeah, because
Well,
I think at that time he's coming up. Cameron's coming off the Titanic. Like I
yeah,
think he's trying
yeah,
to move on to like bigger and better things, and then
but at least
he's got
own
other.
it and then have control of who makes it. I feel like would still be good.
I can agree with that because then especially they even had a TV show. They even did a TV show that didn't even last the season, the Sarah Connor Chronicles, which the
Really, I
people
thought it
who liked
lasted
it
too.
maybe it lasted too, but it like overall it just overall like it didn't last long, but the people who liked it really loved it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, two
And
seasons. So it apparently, okay. Here's the backstory of the show because it picks up from this movie. Actually, it sounds like in the year 1995, 1997 in the show. At the end of Terminator 2 Judgment Day, Sarah Connor and her son John and the 800 series Terminator successfully destroy the T-1000, as well as the ARM and the CPU chip from the Terminator set back in 1984. The T-800 from the second film, at its own request, is then destroyed to eliminate any future technology. Despite this, at the beginning of the television series, a T-888 using the name Cromartie is sent back to 1999 to kill John. Cameron, a Terminator. Hold on. The Terminator is called Cameron. I guess it's a reference to James Cameron. A Terminator that John sent back from 2029 to protect his younger self leaps forward in time with John and Sarah to 2007 to prevent a delayed Judgment Day once and for all. Now wanted fugitives with the fear of pending leukemia prying on Sarah's mind, they must also face the reality that other enemies from the future could be after them. And Cameron is a female Terminator played by Summer Glau.
that's a little too convoluted.
Might give this a watch. I heard good things, so I might give it a watch. Okay, well, anything else that we needed to talk about with we did ratings? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Next pick, I guess, right? Or anything else about T2?
Nah, it's on to the next pick, and I know what it is.
Yeah, we're wrapping up the trilogy. We are doing Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, extended edition. So get ready to sit on your butt for probably about 4 hours and watch Return of the King. This is on HBO Max, or Max as it is now known, just like the other ones were. Yeah, and then after that, just another heads up, we will get to Rise of the Machines, which is Terminator 3, which last checked is free on YouTube. So there you go. But no, I really enjoyed this movie. Glad to finally see it and mark it off of my list and finally get what some of the craze was about, and some of the cultural pop culture references that I never really got. I got the "I'll be back." I got "Hasta la vista, baby," but the rest of them, like, just any sort of reference. The Hollywood Universal attraction makes a lot more sense now that I've seen the actual story.
I think you can look that up on YouTube and like watch it now.
Probably. I might. I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, "Oh, everybody does these theme park attractions, and like you can find closed attractions and rewatch them and stuff." So, I might give that a go and see if it makes, especially now that I know it's like a mini sequel and not just a retelling of the film. So, I guess I'll give that a watch and see if it adds any new light on all of this, especially since Cameron wrote it. I had no clue that was something he did. But we will have some fun stuff with Return of the King. I hinted at it last time. The map website I found. So we'll look at the whole journey for all of these characters that have made the trek through Middle Earth. And then we'll wrap up Terminator, the first trilogy of Terminator, with the following week. So we got a lot going on. By the time this is aired, we've already finished talking about Loki. But if you did not know we were covering that, you can follow that over on the Marvel podcast to the Infinity Saga and Beyond, where we recapped all of season 2 of Loki, which had more time travel and more shenanigans that we theorized about and talked about. So it's been a time travel heavy time for us recently. If you want to give us a follow, all of our socials are in the show notes on the Apple and Spotify. If you're listening audio wise, just look at the show notes. All of that's there. If you're on YouTube, just go down to the description and you'll find all of our socials there. Make sure to rate and review us on those platforms. It helps other people find our podcast and more people can watch along with us as we go. Thank you all for watching and listening. We will catch you next time for Return of the Kings. Me and Casey.
Hasta la vista, baby.